Logical questions are totally fine. Logical questions, like I said in the thing,
I don't know if you're going to find,
they're indicators of interest.
Very,
logical questions are indicators of interest. They are positive things.
Conversation type girl.
Basically, what a logical question is, I mean, think about the times, I don't know if you guys do this, but think about the times that you've sent a girl a logical question via text, and not a, like, how are we going to do that, not a logistics question, but just a, like, what are you doing today, or how was XYZ event. Probably, unless it's a really cool thing, you actually don't care that much about the thing you're asking about. The reason you're asking is because you're trying to make it easier for them to respond. You're trying to give them something to say back. Does that make sense? Because you don't want silence back. So you want to make that response easier, and that's pretty much what they're doing. Like, I mean, girls ask me, like, you know, how is XYZ city all the time? How is DC? How is New York? Do you think they really, really care? Not really. I mean, maybe they're vaguely curious about the traveling, but for the most part, it's just a way to have conversations, just a way to keep it alive, to keep it going until the next time you can interact. So in that sense, the logical questions are very good. The problem with logical questions, though, is if you answer them, or if all you do is answer them, you end up in a logical conversation, and then you end up as a chode. You end up being a very boring interaction for her. And so if it is boring, then obviously she's gonna lose attraction. She's not gonna want to have sex with you down the road. So the secret is to keep it flirty, to keep it fun, but not to expect anything and not to ask anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So typically with a logical question, what I would do is I'll answer it extremely briefly, and then I'll just send some other random thing that's maybe unrelated, but just a cool, fun value offer.
Hello.
Exactly that. So yeah, definitely. But the biggest thing, going back to this particular situation, get more girls.
On the line?
All right.
And get local girls. All right?
Okay.
Awesome.
So I actually thought of a couple of things I wanted to ask as well. So like, when's a good time to text and when's a good time to call?
Hey guys, anybody on the line?
First one. And the second one was, like, in terms of response time, like, what is the general idea of how much I should take to respond, or like, or the time that they take to respond? How do you interpret that?
Okay. What I typically do in practice in terms of the time I take to respond is I just respond whenever I feel like it. Because at this point I have a decent amount of abundance and I'm not really gonna be super tryhard. But what I actually recommend if you're trying to play perfect, and especially if you're like new to texting or if you're somewhat reactive to the girl, what I recommend is, in general, take about the same amount of time she's taking, if not a little bit more, to text back. If you're going to play it gamey style. So, for example, if she texts you back like she texts back in half an hour, you can text her back in maybe half an hour or so, or 45 minutes, something like that, and it'd be totally fine. Even a little less isn't a big deal. What you just don't want is if you you text her and she texts back in an hour, and then you text back 10 seconds later, and then she texts back in 3 hours, and you text back 10 seconds later. Then it looks like you're just waiting on the phone for her text. So that's what you want to avoid. But within the realm of that, as long as it's sort of like same order of magnitude, as long as hers is a number of hours and yours is a number of hours, or hers is a number of minutes, yours is a number of minutes, as long as you're the same order of magnitude, you don't need to nitpick it. You don't need to be like super crazy on it. Mm-hmm. And also, it's good to vary it up. It's good to not just be predictable too, right? It's okay to if she texts you something, respond right away. She responds back, and then go silent. Things like that are totally fine too. So don't be too caught up in time per se. Just be aware of not immediately texting back all the time, okay? And also be smart too, right? Certain things take precedence over proper timing. I.e., if you're trying to make plans for like Friday and it's getting towards Friday and she texts you, but it took her like 4 or 5 hours. Don't wait 4 or 5 hours till it's almost on top of the plans before you text her back, right? So there's a lot of practical concerns that come into it too. Don't ever think this is black and white, and don't think that you need to like follow some exact rule in order to get the result you're looking for. Realize that it's more about what's being conveyed than about the specific rule. Okay, so that's sort of the when to text, or how long to take the text.
Yeah, hey guys.
It should be kind of obvious, but
yeah, I can. Is this Alex?
It's a mistake I've made just through oversight, through not paying attention before, because I keep a really weird schedule. Typically, you don't want to text during hours when she's asleep. Because a lot of the power of a text is that she gets the text and then she has that immediate urge to respond. Whereas if she is asleep at the time and then she wakes up and she sees your text amid other texts, or she's getting ready in the morning and then she catches your text when she's in the middle of something and can't respond anyway, then a lot of times you're losing that tension and you're losing that immediate desire to respond on her part. Like I had one time where I tend to mass text a lot of girls when I move to cities, and I tend to get a pretty high response rate. And then one time I came back to a city and I mass texted everybody at 4:30 in the morning, and I got like nothing back compared to what I was usually getting. And it really shocked me because I hadn't really considered it as a factor. I just figured, they wake up, they'll see it, whatever. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot to be said for them hearing that beep and picking up their phone and having that immediate moment of interaction, or that moment of reaction. So make sure that if you have a choice, text at a time when they're awake, and also text at a time if you happen to know roughly their schedule. Text at a time when they're likely to actually receive it right away, so they actually hear the beep rather than just finding the message later. Because I feel you get a much higher response rate and a much better response rate to that sort of situation, because it has more emotional potency. So that's a little bit also on when to text. In terms of when to call versus when to text, you'll get differing opinions on that from different people, even different instructors. For myself personally, I would say call if you can get away with it. Okay, and what I mean by that is if you think you can get her to pick up the phone, call. And that's coming from me for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I'm very good on the phone. Like, my phone game is really tip-top. If I can get a girl on the phone, I feel like I pretty much can get a date. Pretty much always. So given that, obviously, if you think that getting a girl on the phone is equivalent to getting a date, would you want to get her on the phone? Yes, you definitely would. So make that a priority. That said, a lot of times,
Alex,
girls will answer a text when they wouldn't answer a phone call. And so that's when you text. When you text is when you can't get away with the phone call. So for sets that aren't super on, or for the first time that when you're just meeting a girl, or the first time, like after meeting her, the first follow-up, a lot of times text is better because it's just a higher percentage response rate because it's less investment from them. It's less of a commitment from them to like write a couple sentences back to a text message than it would be to engage in like a 20-minute phone conversation or put themselves on the line for a potential bad emotion that could come out of a phone conversation. So because the text is less investment on their part, for a not super solid set, you're more likely to get them via text than you would via phone. Another nice thing about text is that if you make a phone call and you miss them, then they have the missed call. Whereas if you text and then you miss them, they still will have the text message, and it won't be like as big of a loss of value. It won't be a situation where it would be really weird for you to follow up in the same way later, necessarily, especially if you send a value offering text. So it's less commitment on their part. It's also less commitment on your part. So on the one hand, it's easier for them to respond. On the other hand, if it doesn't get a response, it costs you less. So for those reasons, on these sort of flaky, not so solid sets, I typically would start with a text message, just because I feel like I'll get the higher response, and then I'll get them on the phone. And one really good trick for that, again, because I like getting the girl on the phone, because I'm very good with it, would be to, as soon as they text you back, immediately pick up the phone and call them, because you know they're by their phone. You know they're by their phone, you know they just texted you, you know that it would be weird for them not to pick up. And then if they don't pick up, I'll even text them, I'll be like, pick up, weirdo. Right? Or I'll be like, haha, too scared to talk. What's that?
I said I didn't even think about that, but yeah, it's true that if they reply to you, I mean, they're by their phone.
Right. Really? That's really weird. Hang on, I'm getting sorry, I have a technical issue here. That's really weird. Okay, so apparently these guys are, that's really weird. Says participants are calling and asking if anyone's here, followed by silence and hang-ups every 5 minutes or so. Really? Have any of you guys heard that? Heard called in from other people? No? Interesting. I wonder if it's the call-in users. I'm gonna try something really fast. Sorry. I do not know what to do with this, actually. Huh. Hang on 1 second. So that last chat thing was just to Sean, who actually sent me that other one. But anyway, excuse me. Yeah, so definitely use your leverage via the text to get them on the call if you possibly can. At least that's my premise, and the reason for that is A, because I'm good on the phone, B, because it's the closer form of communication to the form of communication you actually do in person. Okay, so because in person you're going to want to be talking to them, it helps to have more channels of communication open. It helps to be able to use your tone of voice, be able to use your rhythm. Whereas in text, you're just limited to exactly what comes through text, right? Which is a very limited, very flat form of communication. So the more intimate the form you can have, the better, right? You can even potentially have like almost the equivalent of a date over the phone, which I'll do very interestingly. Huh. That's very odd. That's very, very odd. Is anybody, hey, by the way, can we just do a quick roll call just to see? I'm just going to do a roll call. Just let me know if you're actually here and if you can actually hear me, because I'm getting like texts from people that say like they can't hear me, which is weird because other people can. Okay? So I know Eduardo's here. Diego, hello? Can Diego hear me and or can Diego talk? Okay. Is this Diego?
Yes.
Okay, cool. How about Onur? O-N-U-R.
Yeah,
Yes, hello? Okay, Kevin? You there, buddy?
Hello.
Kevin? Okay, no Kevin, surprisingly. Aaron? Aaron, yeah? Okay, and Jeremy? Alright, so it seems like a lot of people can. That's weird. Okay, so it seems like all the guys that are on there can. Is there anybody on a call-in right now that can hear me currently and can respond? Just offhand? Huh. Okay, well I don't know what to tell people. At least some people can log in, so I guess we'll just go with what we got. Sorry about that, guys. Whoever can't. Whoever can't, obviously they'll get it recorded later, but it'd be nice if we could actually get them on here. All right. So sorry about that, guys. Back to the content. Is that Kevin?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, man. We're gonna have to talk about all the video stuff you did up in Boston at some point soon. But yeah. All right. Sounds good. All right. Let's see, where were we? Okay, so when to text, when to call, and what to text about. Also, when to call is if you're scheduling an actual meetup, if you're dealing with logistics. A lot of times I'll call in that context. So for example, if you've already agreed to hang out on like Wednesday night, but you haven't set up the details, a lot of times a call is really good for that. Because what really sucks is if a girl says like, I can hang out Wednesday, and you're like, okay, cool, let's do 7, and you maybe text that on Wednesday morning, and it gets to like 4 p.m. and she hasn't responded. And then you're like, what the fuck? Do I have plans? Do I not have plans? Where are we at? Sorry, more texting. So do we have plans, do we not have plans? And then you're in this weird limbo where you don't quite know where you're at, and you don't know, like, if someone else calls you up for plans, you don't know whether to make plans, whether to not make plans. You don't want to keep calling this girl because you don't want to, like, lose value, and you don't want to be pushy and needy. But at the same time, like, you have damn plans, right? You don't want to be, like, stuck and, like, missing your opportunity or whatever. So this is a weird situation. So if it gets to the point where you've kind of agreed to a date and you can get her on the phone just to set up the logistics, it's a lot easier to do via call, because at the end of a call, you're going to either know that you're on or know that you're off, and you're going to have a set time if you're on. And it's going to be very clear. Everybody will be on the same page. Whereas text can lead to a lot of confusion due to if people don't respond, or it can lead to a lot of situations where you don't quite know where you stand. And so for that reason, I really, really prefer calling when you're setting up logistics. So that's another situation where I'll really call a lot rather than texting. The other thing in terms of calling versus texting is if you're going to be out of town for a long time and it's someone you're already seeing, or even if it's not, I guess, if it's someone's pretty on with it you're not already hooking up with, texting is really good for just like light, casual, keep in touch type stuff. But if you're going to be out of town for a long time, or if you feel like it's getting stale, sometimes a phone call can really turn it around, because like I said, a phone call can almost be like a date. It's much more intimate than the texting. The downside of phone calls is twofold. Number one, if you call a bunch of times and can't get through, it looks pretty lame. So that's not so good. The other downside of phone calls is there's not quite the same amount of tension potentially as there is in texting, right? I mean, in the same way that it's very easy. I don't know who's making that noise, but whoever you are, if you can mute yourself, would be cool. If a lot of you guys probably have had situations where you're pursuing a girl and then you send a text message and then you don't get a response and you start overanalyzing the message and thinking, did I do well, did I do badly, did I say some shit that I shouldn't have said? And you get all in your head about it, and it actually makes you get way more attached to the girl than you were before. Often, a lot of times, if I have a girl that I picked up and I wasn't even that into, but I just send out some random text, and then she responds, I respond back, it's very flirty, I feel like it's on, and then all of a sudden it dies or it goes bad, then the fact that it went bad will make me get attached to the girl. The fact that it went bad will make me get all like caught up, and then I'll actually end up liking the girl more than I would have otherwise. Whereas that's kind of more difficult to happen via phone conversation because there's not that tension and there's not that utter silence or utter lack of communication. So it is actually really good for kind of tightening that string of tension if you use it properly. So that's one thing. If you get to like a high level, or if you can get her chasing you via text, then that's pretty nice too. But in general, if you can call rather than text. And if your phone game sucks, get good at it. Get really good at phone game. That's my personal method. I know there are other guys that do it purely via text, but I can only tell you what works for me. And I can tell you that there are times when I've set it up only via text and it's totally fine. Just because either I can't get through on the phone or the plans just end up getting made so smoothly that there's really no need to get her on the phone. So that'll happen sometimes too. But for the most part, my goal in text is to get her on the phone. My goal on the phone is to get her on a date. And then if it just so happens that I can set up the date via text, then I'll do it. So that's the general strategy, I guess, that I go with.
Great. Thanks.
Uh-huh. Okay. Any other questions, guys? All right. Feel free to ask questions anytime. What I'll do while I'm waiting on questions is I will bring up some of the questions from the video and just go over what some of them are real fast. So let me log.
I got a question.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. The last weeks I've got like 2 girls' numbers, and for some causes they seem to be like really like into me. But for some reason they also like whenever they answer back, I can sense that. I mean, they even like ask logical questions, like they put smiles and everything. But for some reason they take a long time to answer whatever I do. Like, it's weird. They just take like forever. And whenever I'm trying to like I'm trying to go for a date or something. Yeah. So I try to go for a date or something. I don't know if I should like that fast because my conversations just take like she takes like a day to answer one text. It takes too long. She seems to be like a super busy girl. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to do. Like, should I go like? I mean, let's say that one day I make her laugh, and the next day am I gonna be like straight for the date? I mean, kind of like a bit more patience. I don't know, but you know.
Yeah, the timing thing is a negative indicator for sure, but the fact that she is responding at all is a very positive indicator. And you said she's texting like flirty type of stuff, or you said logical questions and smileys, but is she actually flirting?
Yeah, it's like she is positive.
Okay. In that case, what I would do is I would sort of I would push for the meetup, but I would not push. As in, I would suggest the meetup or I would seed the meetup, but I wouldn't be pushy about it, and I wouldn't go for a specific time. So I might say something like, or the other thing that you can do actually in that case too, is you can try the meetup where you're not inviting her out on a date, but you're just inviting her out with you and friends. Because that's a less risky meetup in terms of for her and for you. So a lot of times if you don't think that you can get the meetup in terms of like getting her out on a date or like, hey, let's grab drinks or something, a lot of times you can say, I'm doing XYZ thing only, feel free to join if you're interested. Or something along those lines, right? I mean, you don't have to use those particular words, but that frame. Because with that frame, if she says no, then it's not like you bent your schedule to see her and then she said no. It's just like, hey, I'm doing this thing. If you're interested, come out, right? And so it looks far cooler for you, and it's much less of a risk of losing value or losing the situation than it would be if you tried to close for something very intimate and something very like.
Hello, anybody there?
So that's one thing you can do.
Testing, 1,
Do
2,
like
3.
a soft close. Is that what they call it?
Yeah,
Soft close.
that's yeah, you could think of that as a soft close, and essentially what I'm getting at in concept is you're going to soft close one way or another. So one way, I guess, to soft close is to close for something less intimate, right? Make it a close for something smaller. The other way to soft close would be to close for, or just suggest the close or hint at the close without making a big deal. Like, there's a big difference between, maybe we'll talk about that over a drink sometime, versus let's grab a drink Tuesday at 7. Right, because maybe we should talk about that over a drink sometime, is just, she can say yes to it without having to inconvenience herself. Because she could still say no down the line, but you get some sort of indicator of whether she's in, right? If she goes, yes, let's, exclamation mark, then that's great. Then you can actually push for specifics. If she then doesn't respond to that or whatever and goes silent for a day or so, then you can just send some value offering text and just start over again, right? And you haven't lost nearly as much as if you'd made some very specific plan that was very, again, high investment and required you to, like, change your schedule or set time aside for her, right? So in general, what you want to be doing, I guess, in text is you want to constantly be trying to push it forward or constantly allowing it to go forward, never impeding its going forward at the very least, but at the same time projecting yourself as a cool guy who's fun and has things going on in his life. So that's overall the strategy that you'd like to convey, or the persona, the image you'd like to convey is that cool guy has things going on in his life, but will progress the interaction forward if given the chance, right? Not the chode who's going to become her like new text messaging buddy and never get sexual. So that's the fine line you want to draw. Okay, so so that's the thing along those lines. The other thing that you could do too is even softer than a soft close is throw in just some misinterpretation. Just misinterpret something she says as liking you, misinterpret it as her flirting, and see how she responds to that. Like if you flirt a little bit, see if she picks up the flirt. See if she takes the flirt further, or if she rejects and ignores that part of the text. So it's a good gauge. So if you flirt and she flirts back, then you can soft close or even hard close. Whereas you flirt and she ignores the flirt, now you have more work to do, right? So it's constantly a question of saying, like, how close is this girl to going out with me? How comfortable is she? How much more work do I have to do? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's all these little tools you can use to gauge, and as long as you intersperse them in with just generally being cool and fun and non-reactive, then you can get away with a lot and you can find out a lot where you stand. So yeah, my suggestion basically in that case where you're getting. Basically, because I said there's multiple communication channels, right? There's how long is she taking to text is one communication channel. Is what she's texting positive is another communication channel. Does she ask logical questions? Does she try and make it easy for you to text back? How long are her texts is another communication channel. So basically, you're looking at all these different channels, and if you're positive on all the channels, try and close. If you're positive on some of the channels and not others, then try and escalate slightly and see what that does to the reaction. If you escalate and gets it more positive, then keep escalating. If you're escalating and gets it more negative, then stop escalating. Okay? The other thing that I should mention, while you want to play perfect text game, it'd be nice to play perfect text game to get every girl. Sometimes putting a ton of time and effort into texting a particular girl is counterproductive for two different reasons. One, because you have better things to do with your time. And two, because ironically, the more time and energy you put into thinking of the right thing to say, the more likely you are to say something utterly stupid. So the more that you can just be doing it like half-assed and flippantly, the better off, right? I think Ryan has a couple good threads on texting, which I'll actually link you guys to those ones. By the way, for the threads that were wrong apparently wrong in the video I posted up yesterday, I'll try and send you guys some other text message threads via text in the follow-up on the Inner Circle portal. But Ryan has a really good text thread where I'll try and paraphrase it as best I can. It's been a while since I read it. But he basically says that the typical paradigm he used to have was he would get the girl's text, try and think of something like some clever frame and then some witty way to put it across, and he'd think about like keep editing it back and forth and try and make it better, and then he'd send it, and then he'd immediately wonder if that was the best he could do, or if it was too try hard, or if it was right, or if it was wrong, right? So because of that, he would be very try-hard. He would actually shoot himself in the foot a lot via texting, right? Now he said his frame is, get the text, figure out a way that it means she loves me, interpret it that way, send back the first thing I think of in response to that positive frame. So just assume the text is the most positive possible, and given that it's the most positive possible, send back the most obvious response to the supremely positive text, and then throw my phone in the pocket and forget about it. Right? I think that's it's a little formulaic, and it's a little, you don't want to be like always going through that process or whatever in your head. And if you do it too much, too many of your texts will be the same as other texts, and you'll be predictable. But it's a good frame. It's a good frame, which is assume it's positive, say something quick and not all that thought out, just whatever's top of your mind, create it, like just spontaneous, and then just throw it back in your pocket and forget about it. And the forget about it is one of the biggest things. Never forget in text that one of the most powerful tools you have is silence. Silence is a powerful, powerful, powerful tool. I don't know if you guys saw my video the other day, my my one that half the people liked it because I finally showed emotion, and because I like put a stand out for women, and then half the people were like, Todd, you're so fucking butthurt. Interestingly enough, the girl, one of the two girls, I'm actually in contact again. I cut off contact with both the girls that that I mentioned in that video, and both of them are now in contact with me again because they reinitiated it, and one of them I like ended up sleeping with a few days ago. But what I did with both of them is I just went silent. And the fact of the matter is, because we had that history, because we had that relationship, and because I just was over it, and they were used to talking to me, and they felt the gap, they felt the absence, they ended up pursuing me. And now that they're pursuing me again, now I can flip the frame, and now I don't have to deal with nearly as much bullshit as I did before. Right? And now that I've decided, because I put that video out, and now that I've come to the conclusions of that video, now I'm not going to slip back into that bad frame either. So, but that's just a testament to the power of silence. Because I didn't really do anything special with either of them. I just went silent. And so I went silent with this one, and hang on, I'll show you that. I'll read off the text for you where we're at. If I can find it, it'll take me a second. Actually, but go ahead.
What do you mean by silence? You mean like have like really brief answers, like short answers? Or?
No, by silence I mean silence. I mean not responding at all. No response. Yeah. So where does she go? She's like, okay, alright, where are we? Okay, so this girl was giving me bullshit. I said, this goes back about a week or so. I said, she's like, okay, have a nice trip. I say, I will, shall we rendezvous when I return? She says, sure, as long as you don't mind if we don't sleep with each other anymore. Just fucking bullshit. But anyway, I've dealt with this a lot, so I don't really care. A lot of times, like I said, you can just go meet up with a girl as friends and then sleep with her. So I say, LOL, you're free to do or not do whatever you feel like. I'd never want that to feel like an obligation anyway, right? And usually that's enough. Usually that's enough that they can justify to themselves that they can hang out with you as friends, nothing has to happen, and they'll just hang out with you and then something will happen, right? And it's totally fine. But then she texts me back, ha, you are not one that likes to take no for an answer, because basically every time we've hung out, we've ended up hooking up. And so at this point, I was kind of annoyed with her. I was like, pick up your phone, weirdo, and then we talked on the phone, and it basically, like, she was saying obnoxious stuff, so that I basically ended up just hanging up on her. I just basically, like, I was like, look, you have a choice. We can either be something, like, intimate, we can be friends, and in that case, like, I want you to be totally cool with just being friends, like, not even think about kissing me. I want you to be, like, at the level where if I brought another girl in front of you, you would, like, congratulate me, rather than even being, like, upset. You'd be congratulating me. So otherwise, if that's not the case, we're not even really friends. There's some weird combination thing, and I can't deal with that. I can't deal with this in-between bullshit. So either we're, like, lovers, we're friends, or if you want, you have the option of just never talking to me, right? I just kept hammering on her about that. She was kind of pissed off anyway. Until she was like, fine, maybe we should never talk. And then I just hung up on her. Just full hung up, and that was it. And then she goes... And then it goes, how does it go? Let's see. It goes 3 days of silence. Like probably like more like 4 days of silence almost. And then she goes, I don't know why you were totally cool with being friends, before being friends if we didn't end up together. And then when I suggested it's clear that's not how it is, right? And then I just silence, no response. And then she sends me a few hours later a picture of a cat, like this cute cat with the word grumpy with like 6 Y's, grumpy, right? Again, no response. And then she goes, come on, I want to be able to text you about how funny Tyler's posts are. Who else would get it that I could laugh too, duh, but obviously you're a cool guy too. seriously, LOL, really aren't open to just being friends, question mark, right? So she sends me all these messages now just because I like silence for 3 days. So then after she sends me this, like, this is like literally like filling up 2 pages, like 2 screens on my phone of her messages. And so I send her back, question mark, exclamation mark, and that's it. Like, just nothing. Alright, I'm like, question mark, exclamation mark. And then she sends me question mark, exclamation mark. I go, friendship is good, period. Delusion is bad. Right? So then she goes, she comes up with this weird thing where I think she's trying to get my attention or trying to get me to qualify myself. She goes, unknown number, question mark, that you, question mark. And then she sends it again a couple hours later, unknown number, that you, question mark. I go, what? Like 6 hours later, I go, what? And she goes, guess not. And then I don't respond, total silence. And then she goes, delusion is bad, question mark. I think more misunderstanding, not bad. I go, silence again. 3 hours later, she goes, weird now. Right? And then I just said, at this point, anything worth saying would probably be too long to text at this point. Right? And then she texts me a bunch more times and then eventually calls me and just invites me out. So the point is, by having that silence, by being completely non-needy and not pursuing it, and just being willing to deal with the fact, but the thing with silence, it's risky. Because if you do silence and she does silence back, then the relationship is just over. Right? It's just over, end of it. But, although that's not even true actually, because if you do silence for a while and then you just come back around, you can always pick it back up. So that's not even quite true. But it is a little risky in that you get that negative sentiment, or you can get into that game where you're both trying to like each other less, and that's a dangerous game to get into. But the fact of the matter is, when a girl's being a little too obnoxious or is just sending you stuff where your immediate response is just yuck, you don't necessarily have to respond to it. You're not obligated to respond to every text. Right? So what ended up happening with this girl is she ended up texting me a few more times asking what I was doing. Texted me that she happened to be in Long Island, which was the same place I was at the time, so I was like, huh, that's funny, I'm there too. And then she just invites me out the next night. And then we just hang out. No, let's just be friends. This time she's like, okay, let's just meet up. And then we hang out. Doesn't even come up, the whole friend thing. We just talk, chat normally, slow escalation, and end up sleeping with her. So, yeah, that silence is great for building the tension again. The other one that's really funny, if you're really ballsy, is just to fuck with a girl sometimes. You can just, especially if you like, if she said something a little dumb before, and she texts you again, you can text her, who's this? Which is really strong. Again, risky. It's a huge break of rapport, but sometimes can be really good, right? Sometimes what I've done is I've done who's this and then a wink, which softens it a little bit, because then she isn't quite sure if you don't know who it is or if you're fucking with her. And also, because if you do who's this in a wink, even though by the end she knows you're fucking with her, when she reads who's this, she'll get that terrified feeling in the pit of her stomach because she hasn't gotten to the wink yet. Like, have you guys ever seen that, where like you read a text message and the start of it is so like, it just starts out so terrifying that you just like, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, and then you actually get to the end and you realize it's not that bad, or it's not even bad at all, but because of the way it started, it just scared the shit out of you. So that's what that one does. So that's another thing similar to silence. Another one that I've that's fun to play around with is you can actually text lose my number, right? And again, high risk, high reward. Typically, with who's this or lose my number, I wouldn't do that except as a last resort. The times I would do that is if all else has failed and you just don't think it'll work at all, and you need to just spike some emotion to get her back on the hook. So in those cases, you'll get that, you can spike that immediate reaction, and then you can either get her qualifying herself or get her chasing again, or you can get her to just text back, in which case you can pick up the phone and get her on the phone. Because it's a lot easier to solve the fight or solve the problem or get through something on the phone than it is via text. So a lot of times what you can do is you can use this like really, really strong asshole text just to get some kind of reaction, even if it's just like, excuse me, or what the fuck, or who the fuck do you think you are, or something like that. And then right when they text that, you just pick up the phone and call them because you know they're by their phone. So it's kind of a gimmicky way to get them on the phone. And then once you get them on the phone, then you just have a normal conversation, you learn to diffuse it, right? The same way you diffuse a fight with your girlfriend. So that's another really good tactic to use. But I guess the main upshot of that is don't ever be afraid of silence. Don't ever be afraid of using silence. Oftentimes silence is one of the best possible texts, if not the best possible text. So recognize that you're not obligated. And also recognize you're never obligated to text back immediately. If someone texts you something you don't really know what to do with it, a lot of times the best answer at that moment, rather than trying to come up with something clever or funny, is just look at it, think, and then just throw it back in your pocket and deal with it 5 hours from now. Right? Because it's totally plausible if you're a busy guy that you just didn't get the text yet or you were just too busy to deal with it. It's totally plausible. Girls do it all the time. So it's okay too. So recognize the value and the power of silence and the value and power of tempo in the text, the value and power of how long your wait periods are. So never forget that either. Next question. Let's see, thoughts on push pull over text. A bit more difficult than in person in case of going overboard, but also builds your value quite a bit. Interestingly enough, I think I kind of covered that in the last little section. Push pull in text is huge. Push pull in text is absolutely enormous, but you have to be careful not to go too far, and also you have to be careful because it's harder to apologize in text because there isn't that tone of voice. You can't have a sarcastic tone of voice. I mean, you can kind of use smileys, which, by the way, if you're going to be hard push pull in text, do use your smileys sometimes. But that said, it's a little hard to convey, and it's a little easy to have misunderstandings. So if you don't need to, I don't necessarily recommend doing a lot of push pull, but it definitely can be good, and it definitely can get you somewhere. Yeah, there was one situation. I forget what his response was in my old phone. I wish I had my old phone charged. But some girl said something I didn't like. Oh, I know what it was. It was a girl I met from online. And she was giving me she was very flirty, but she was very slow to escalate. And it was because she was younger than me. She was 21, I'm 30. And so in the online process, she was very, very slow to escalate. She'd flirt, but anytime I asked her for a number, she just went silent. And then asked her for a number, she'd go silent. And then eventually I was able to get through that after tons and tons of messages. And then I got her in text. And again, she's flirting, but didn't seem to be moving towards escalating. And also because she'd been silent and been slow to escalate on the online game, I was actually really cognizant of not trying to over-escalate on her. So for that reason, I got her in text and I hit her. I just made fun of her really hard and just kind of almost pushed her away. We had this joke online where it was she was going to be my future chat room wife. So her first text to me was, "Hey, it's your future chat room wife." And I think I said, "Wow, things are moving really fast. We're not even you haven't even followed me on Twitter yet. I don't know if I can handle this. You're bad news," something like that. Right. So it was along the lines of pushing her away. And then one of the ones I used to push her away was, for all I know, you're some 50-year-old guy with 3 teeth and 4 chins or something like that. And then she responded, "Yeah, actually, and she described this really gross old guy." And so so I'm pushing away, she's pushing her away, and then I went to hard rapport break, and I said, "Yeah, ... GTG, got to go. Something just came up. I think it was my lunch." So basically, I'm making fun of her. I'm saying "You just grossed me out. I'm done. This is over." And it's a fake breakup. And then after that, she responded 3 messages in a row to me. And then I knew it was on, and then I knew I was able to close. So a lot of times, if something's stagnant, you can use a hard push-pull to get somewhere with it. But recognize it's a risky tactic. Recognize when you do a hard diss or a hard push-pull, especially in text. It's actually true in regular game too, but especially true in text game because, again, it's harder to say just kidding. It's harder for them to get the tone of voice, so it's easier to misinterpret it in a really bad way. So when you do that, it can build immense amounts of tension, but it can also completely fuck you and send you back to square one. So be careful with it. Typically, I'll use it if I've tried other things and they're not working, or if things seem to be stagnant. If things are just staying at one plane and never progressing, then I'll try some really hardcore diss or hardcore, mean text. So that's another thing I'll do along those lines. The other thing that I don't know, I find works for me kind of in text. I'm trying to figure out a way to explain it. I can almost narrate the text conversation. Sometimes, I can call her out on whether her text was good or bad, or call her out on if she had done a different text, then something else would have worked, right? There was this girl that basically we were essentially fighting, breaking up, and then she sent me this I basically had gone silent on her, and so her text was, "A dubious farewell. I thought you had an aversion to such things. Nevertheless, I'm glad to have gotten to know you, and I will think of you fondly as I have known you for the most part, dashing, daring, dauntless." Right? It was a very poetic, but very fucked up. Right? She's basically saying, "Yeah, goodbye, never again darken my doorstep, but let me make this really a really pleasant cordial goodbye, which was funny because there was no goodbye in the interaction before that. It's just like very weird, and it's actually very reaction seeking on her part because she sent a really long text when she didn't need to. Instead of leaving silence, she wanted some form of closure. So it's a sign that she's emotionally reactive, but it's a sign she's emotionally reactive in like in not necessarily the most positive way. So she's feeling emotions from me, but the emotions are not the ones I'd necessarily like her to be feeling, right? So the first thing I sent was I just sent yuck, and I was hoping that she would just respond to that in some way, qualify herself, try and reopen a conversation, but that didn't happen. So then something like 12 hours later, so by the way, her first email, she sent that, and then I sent yuck like 7 hours later. So it's like pretty dismissive already. I'm like silence for 7 hours and then one word response. She sent that long ass thing, I sent one word yuck, right? But then she didn't respond to that. And so at this point I realized that like I kind of went too hard potentially with the break and rapport. Like it could be a misunderstanding where even if she wants to talk to me, she's now in a spot where she would feel lame doing it. So what I want to do is, without losing my frame, I want to give her an out. I want to give her a way to reopen communication. So I said, all it would have taken for us to be friends would have been an actual attempt to communicate. You're unbelievably disappointing yet again, right? So it's still a diss. You're unbelievably disappointing yet again is pretty strong, right? But all it would have taken for us to be friends is just for her to communicate. It makes her realize that like she's very close. Like it's actually something that's winnable for her. It's actually something worth pursuing. And then it actually makes her feel a fear of loss. It makes her feel like, because she obviously with that message is trying for something. So I can make her feel that loss. I can make her feel like she almost had it if she just shut up and not shot herself in the foot. So she's going to feel regret over that message. She's going to feel regret over the fact that she overpushed it, right? So that's another thing you can do. And I learned that from girls too. A lot of times if you overpush, they'll be like, wow, never mind, I thought you were cool. Okay, then have a good night. Stuff like that, where it's like, what the fuck? Because when they say that, on the one hand, it's a huge diss, and on the one hand, it feels like you lost them. But the fact of the matter that you lost them means that you had them at one point, or at least it implies that you had them. So it makes the loss really, really hurt, and it makes you want it back, and it makes you feel like you're close, so it makes you super reactive when you want to text back. And that's what happened in this case. In this case, what did she do? We'll go back to it. She sent question mark. Then next text message, I called a bun H, B-U-N-H, and then she recorrects her grammar to bunch, and then she goes, like, and then she waits like a minute, and then she goes, next text, also you're being passive aggressive, and then she goes, getting mad at me for things you want me to do without telling me what they are, right? So all of a sudden, I've given her this way to reopen communication, but in a negative way, because she's desperate to reopen communication, because she's very emotionally invested, because she wants to connect. She'll jump on it, and then she'll get very reactive. And then by getting her reactive, I'm able to turn it around and then make her actually chase me again. So that's a good use of a little bit of a diss, but also a diss with a way out. So a lot of times I'll do that too. A lot of times if I'm going to do the hard diss, I'll do a hard diss, but like with a soft way out, or as if like they were so close to having me, but now I have to diss them. They've given me no choice, which makes them feel like they want it back, like they still have a chance. So it's not a total end, right? Because the problem with silence, like pure true silence, is that there's not a lot of maneuverability to it. So that's why you want to maybe leave a door open a lot of times as well. All right, let's see, more questions. Do you guys have questions, by the way? Anybody who's on, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be cool if you could like send us a couple of examples from your text. That'd be awesome.
Sure. Let's see what I can do of late. Unfortunately for you guys, I got a new phone recently. So let's see. But actually, what I could potentially do, if I have it, it would take a while though. I might be able to plug in my old phone and do it. I'll give you some examples from online, which is similar to text, because I know I can access them right here. Okay? So let me pull that up though. Give me a second. I actually have some really good ones from online. By the way, for those of you who came late, I apologize for all the coffee and clearing my throat. I have literally no voice right now, but I'm doing the best I can, so deal with it. Okay, let's see what we got here. Any other quick, maybe a quick question you think will be a quick answer while I'm looking this up, so there's just not dead time?
How do you feel about statements to bridge kind of like your text between the dates?
What do you mean?
Like, here, I'll show you an example.
Okay.
There's like things you were doing, for example, like saying like, oh, just went to Barnes & Noble's, it was awesome. Something really random.
In what context are you sending that?
Like just to girls I met, but then if I know the date's probably not going to be for a couple of days, but I still want to keep it warm.
Okay.
You know, just like keeping it in between, just to take some value in between.
Yeah, okay. The first thing I'll tell you on that is try and set the date sooner. Like, try and set the date closer, because it's a huge pain in the ass. That situation in general sucks.
Yeah, no.
But, so it's obviously try and set the date sooner. In terms of, whether to bridge it, I would say case by case. If you think that if you think that you have massive value and not enough comfort, like if you think that she might not be totally comfortable seeing you, then I would say definitely do that. Because that way you're keeping it so that she feels like there's something between you, and so it's like a reminder, it's an ongoing thing. And definitely in that case, just something value offering. It doesn't even have to be about you, some random thing. I think it's actually a pretty good call. If you feel like there's a value issue where like she's very high status or she's not very reactive to you yet, then it's a little more dangerous. So in that case, what you send, you could still get away with it, but you want to make sure that it's a little less nice, maybe more like dickhead funny sort of a thing, so it's conveying something about your life. Or just do less of it, maybe only like one time maximum or something like that. And instead of getting in this frame where you're chasing a little too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would assess basically whether you think, basically say to yourself, if this girl flakes, is she more likely to flake due to lack of value or due to lack of comfort? And if the answer is lack of value, then I would say use that sparingly. If the answer is lack of comfort, then use it very willingly. Where the hell are these? Boy, let's see. That's really interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if you probably talk about ways of offering value over text. I would like to know what other ways besides saying something funny are good ways to offer value in the conversation.
Right. Okay. Basically, sending a cute picture is one. Saying something funny is one. Saying something just interesting is one. It doesn't necessarily even have to be funny. Just interesting will do. For example, I had one recently. I think I mentioned it in the video, but where it was just drove past a store that sells only used and out-of-print cookbooks. Just some random weird thing, random weird observation would be totally fine. Anything that just is conveying your personality and not asking for anything. The key thing being not asking for anything and not asking for anything. So you don't say, just saw this cool store that's using out-of-print cookbooks. By the way, what are you up to? Or like, let's hang out at 7, or do you want to grab a drink sometime? You just leave it in a vacuum and just say it. And then they either respond to it or they don't. And if they don't respond to it, it's not a big deal because it was just value offering anyway. Does that make sense? The issue I have, by the way, with the previous situation is if you send that value offering thing in between the date and then it doesn't go over, then you're left in this awkward position of confirming the date from a position of sort of lower value because you're like kind of double texting. So that's my only issue with it in the situations where there's a value gap. So that's why I don't necessarily recommend it all the time. But I do think keeping them on board is good, and I do think in a situation where it's been days and days and days, it's not even so bad just to confirm, just to flat confirm, just be like, just confirming, are we on tomorrow, looking forward to seeing you, or something like that, would be totally fine. In a situation like if it's been 4 days since you made the plan, just because it is legitimate that it could be a flake issue in that particular case, just being logical. Okay, let me pull up some examples for you guys. Where are we? Okay. Okay, that one's a good example. This one's a better one. Actually, I did that one already. Okay. I think I told you that one on my phone. Okay, so here's an example. Let me see if I can pull this up in the same window so I can actually still see the webinar window. Make sure I'm on screen and stuff. Alright, so first message I send her, if you can be a goofball and a bitch in the same sentence, I'll buy you a drink. Todd. And she says, haha, well, that's quite a lovely offer. I'm pretty sure we'd strangle each other within minutes. So here, obviously, like, it's somewhat flirty and playful, but it's also somewhat, like, dismissive, right? So, in this case, the flirtiness might encourage some guys to try and push it forward or trying to go for something, but I think that's the wrong move in this case. I think that the thing you do is you just pass the shit test and deal with it and get on with it. So in this case, I say, so she says, I think we'd strangle each other within minutes. So I say, I guess, if that's what you're into, and then a little, like, stick out the tongue face, I might want to know you for an hour or two first, though. I'm kind of shy, right? And the funny thing, too, is my profile is anything but shy. My profile is pure asshole. So if I say I'm kind of shy, it's almost ironic, right? So then she goes, man, you are a bit arrogant, aren't you? How is your day going so far? Okay, so now that's interesting, because arrogant is a huge shit test, another huge, huge shit test, like almost like a diss, right? Oh, you're a bit arrogant, aren't you? But then, how is your day going so far? So what she's basically doing is she's saying, like, I think you're an arrogant asshole, I don't know if I want to see you. But that said, I'm emotionally responding to you, and I definitely don't want you to not respond. Because if you say you're a bit arrogant, are you, then she's risking me not responding, right? It's a very scary thing for her to put out there. So she softens it. So she clearly likes me now. But it's definitely not a situation where she's agreed logically to like me, so it's still going to be hard to escalate. So again, I need to just pass the shit test. Okay? So in this case, what I sense. By the way, this one's from a while ago, so there are certain situations where I'll show you where I make mistakes, actually, too. Actually, this is an example of it. So, in this situation, I said, if by arrogant you mean mind-blowingly amazing, then yes, I'm probably a bit arrogant. And then, like, winky face. You seem fairly confident yourself. Do you think you can handle a guy who travels for a living? The travels for a living thing is, this was back in the day when I was doing copy and paste, or I had been doing copy and paste up until here. And so the travels for a living thing was the bait to get her to ask about my job so that I could go to a close afterwards. So it was just silly. In this case, it didn't make sense. I just threw it in. It was kind of miscalibrated. But you live, you learn. But the point here is mostly what I did was pass the shit test. Okay? So the next one she sends me is... Okay, and this is not at all what I expected. Like, usually, like, when I say travel for a living, I get a positive reaction. So I got a really negative reaction here, right? So she goes, that's totally what I meant by arrogant. You're like a mind reader. I'm actually not a confident person. I just know who I am and what I want. No, I don't think you could handle a guy, I don't think I could handle a guy who travels for a living unless he was just an on-the-side kind of thing. I'm really physical, and I look for someone who can give me that. And I don't think someone who travels would really be able to give me that unless they were perfect for me in every other way. So that's really heavy. That's really, 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 really heavy. So I don't want to take on that heavy frame at all. But I need to deal with the situation in some way, shape, or form, because it is a pretty logical thing, and it is pretty negative. So ideally, I'd like to be kind of upbeat and positive and fun and flip a negative to a positive, but without trying to be like, oh, don't worry, I'll be whatever you want me to be, right? So what I did was I said, and this I think was a bad text because I tried to close too hard. But I say, well, fortunately, I happen to be perfect, smiley face. Seriously, though, that was a very self-aware answer, and I can relate about being physical. So I think that part was pretty decent. But then what I did is I tried to close. I tried to close off a negative message, which is disaster. Full disaster. Don't try and close off shit tests. So what I did after that is I said, perhaps that's all better discussed over a drink. What's your number? And I did that basically because I just didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how else to move it forward, and I was concerned about moving it forward. So I tried too hard, right? And so when I got to that in response was I got silence for 3 days. We've been messaging back and forth like every half day or so, right, on online, and then I get 3 days of silence. So a lot of people just give up here, and I actually strongly considered giving up, but I was just trying to work for skill set. So in fact, if I was just trying to get like girls in general, I probably would just give up here. But in this case, I was trying to figure out how to make everything work because I'm an RC instructor and I'll fucking burn it to the ground every time. So then I sent her a link that had gotten a turnaround before, which was saw this video and thought it was almost as adorable as you. And I don't remember what it is. I think it's adorable of 2 kittens cuddling or something like that. Like just this really cute video. And that had turned around sets I'd thought before. Again, I was just field testing things. And so it actually didn't work. So now it's silence for another 9, 14 days, 2 weeks of silence. 2 full weeks of silence. So at this point, it's like done, right? It's completely dead in the water. But I'm still persistent. And then I go back to like value offering. So what I said is, us not talking for 2 weeks is going beyond playing hard to get. You're going to drive me into the arms of several other women at this rate. Right? So now that actually works. She goes, haha, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm sure other women can satisfy you. How was your 4th? This is around 4th of July, way back then. So now she's coming back around, but like she already kind of dissed me pretty hard. I feel like there's a value issue because I've had to chase so hard. So I decided to do a little push away here. So I go, first you ignore me, now you won't even fight for me. Seriously, at this rate, I'm going to have to go back to single on Facebook, right? So another push away. She goes, haha, I'm just the worst, huh? Maybe you need to kidnap me and take me out. So now, I like this. Now this is very flirty, right? So now I'm getting to the point of like trying to close. But since I asked for the phone number, it didn't work before, now I go for a softer close. So I said, agreed, meet me in Cambridge. I'll bring the duct tape and we can get our Stockholm Syndrome on. But just for the record, I'm a sweet, shy boy, and I find this all very troubling. So I'm playing on the kidnapping thing, obviously. And she goes, haha, I'm sure you are. I think you're secretly a trickster. So now another shit test. And so what I did again is I was actually going out of town for a while, so I wanted to close immediately. So I got a little like rushed, and so I tried to close off the shit test again. So I made the same mistake again. I said, haha, absolutely. I'm going to be traveling again soon. So if you'd like to keep talking, my number is, give her my number. What's yours? Todd. By the way, I mentioned this in the video, but with online, always you'll get a better response if you give them their number when you ask for give them your number when you ask for theirs, as opposed to just asking for theirs. So then I get from that no response for a couple days again. So she goes cold again. Apparently, so far, every time I ask for her phone number, she goes cold, right? So then I say, okay, well, she went cold and came back once, so I'll try it again. So I say, or did you just want to be my online buddy, know me by an avatar, date via an app on Facebook, and have an online chat room wedding if we really hit it off? Question mark. So now she comes back around. And now she goes, well, I adore the idea of a chat room wedding. I'm picking out my dress as we speak. Forgive me if I'm a little nervous about the age difference. She's 21, I'm 30. I'm honestly still just a kid. The idea of going out with someone that much older or that much more mature than myself is a little scary. So then now I have the objection. So I said, haha, well, I haven't eaten anyone this week, I promise. And even as charming as I am, there's only so much trouble I can be on the phone, so I think you're relatively safe. So I thought that was pretty good. I thought it was decent. Again, no response. So apparently every single time I've asked for a phone number, no response, right? So now I realize that the issue is, like, she's just scared of whatever. So I say, now I turn into problem solver, because now I have the objection, now I say, how can I be a problem solver? So then I say, if you're really that nervous/shy, you can call me from a blocked number at a free-range time. Once you talk to me, you'll love me. Yes, that's arrogant, but it's also true. And then at that point, she texted me. So that's an example of a situation where I actually made some mistakes, and I got punished for them. When I made my mistakes, when I tried to close on shit tests, when I tried to push too fast, when I tried to close for the same close that I'd closed before, I got punished. But then once I got the objection out and became a problem solver, then it worked. But the big lesson there is persistence, and you'll notice in my persistent text, while I'm calling out the fact that she's like being weird and not talking to me or like flaking off on me, I'm not doing it in a like emotionally butthurt way. I'm doing it in like a fairly flippant, don't care, funny way. So it is offering value even as I'm calling her out. So that's one decent example. Let me see if I can find another one. Here, I'll show you. I'll bring up one other really quick one. This one's actually pretty good because this is Julian has this thing. We were talking about like when girls find out about like your videos before they hang out with you and how they flake. Like if you're an RC instructor, how they flake on you because they're afraid of the fact that you're a pickup coach. And so basically, what Julian calls it when they find out you're a coach and like flip out on you over it, and then you end up getting them out on a date and then you end up being able to close anyway. He calls that checkmating God, which I really like that phrase. So here's an example of a part of a potential checkmating God scenario. This one's still currently in the works. This is a girl who's like following up with me and texting me back a lot now, but it's still pretty dicey. But I'll at least show you the online part of it, where you can see how I turn around this situation. So this one, she actually starts out messaging me. I mean, this is actually a really cute girl, so surprisingly, like, usually, like, I have to message the cute girls first, but this girl actually messaged me. So her first message is really flattering. She goes, okay, who are you? I say that in the most friendly and impressed way possible. I'm just so curious. Maybe it was the intellectually intimidating part that piqued my interest, or how you described your job, I'm not sure. However, I feel like we could get along. Anyway, I'm just another young, awkwardly mobile, blah-de-blah, who's looking for other folks like myself for a good conversation, whatever comes after that. And then she signs her name. And so I say, awesome, I've been looking for a blah, blah, blah for years, so I'm glad you contacted me. If you're willing to come to Cambridge, I'm willing to ensure the good conversation over a drink. Right? So now, in this situation, right, she pursued me first. She's giving me totally positive indicators, so what do? I don't fuck around, I just go pretty much straight for the close. Now, I didn't go full close, what's your number? If I went soft close, perhaps we'll do whatever. But I went straight for some sort of close, just straight for some sort of escalation, see where I'm at. Because again, she pursued me first, she's giving me positives, so don't fuck around, just get to the point. So she goes, well, that's easy. I work in Cambridge, I'd be totally up for grabbing a drink with you. Not that it matters much, but whereabouts in Cambridge, and then she signs her name again. Okay, so now she's handling logistics. Awesome, this is great. So I go, I know a couple places. Perhaps we should figure it out over the phone. My number is, give her my number, what's yours? Now, funny enough, now she doesn't respond for 2 days, which is really bizarre because she pursued me first. But a lot of girls will do this. On the soft plans, they're okay, but then when you try and make the specific plans, then they flake. What you have to do in these cases is just be a little bit persistent, but not needy persistent, right? So 2 days later, I just send her the message, or not, ... That's it. Nothing more than that. And so she sends me back like 20 minutes later. Sorry, gives me her number. Things got busy at the end of the week and I spaced. Signed her. Okay? Then what happened is I got her on the phone. We had a really good conversation. We made plans for a date. And then she flaked on me on the date. And then flaked in kind of a weird way that didn't really even make sense. Like, she seemed kind of bizarre to me at the time, but I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And so actually I might even have that in my phone. Let me see if I have that. Let's see here. See if I can pull it up. Where is she? Where are we? Okay, here we go. Hopefully I have it in this phone. I think I do. Oops. Oops, I just called her by accident. That's fun. Alright. What do we got? Okay, so I send her my like introduction thing. Hey, it's Todd. Look forward to talking soon. Save my number, etc. And then she doesn't respond, which is surprising. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but she didn't. And then I called her, and she had one of those voicemails where it sounds like she's answering and then not. And so I just sent her a sneaky voicemail as a text. She goes, haha, hey there. So I say, hey, I'm on my other line. I'll call you in 5 to 10 minutes. I call her. She doesn't answer. I go, or not. She goes, question mark. I go, called you, voicemail. So then she goes, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't anticipating a phone conversation, so I gave you my Google Voice number. For whatever reasons, it's not ringing through to my phone. So now I can't get a hold of her, even though she gave me a number, which is annoying. So that's where we're at on that. And then I go, LOL, block your number and call me. And then she calls when we set up plans. Right, so it's all good. But then she actually basically just calls me from her other number, which is this one. See if we can pull that one up. And then she goes, hey, it's her name, so I won't be able to make it tomorrow. Too much to do before I leave, sorry. And I go, KK, talk soon. Right? So it's kind of bizarre because she's been very positive throughout most of the interaction. A little bit of flaking, but not too bad. But now she's like, all of a sudden, like, what? Like, totally nothing now. So that's kind of disturbing. But I'm like, KK, talk soon, no problem. And I was leaving town anyway. And then just while I was away, similar to what Kevin asked, because it was, this wasn't like because to set up, to make a plan solid or whatever, but just to keep it fresh while I was out of town. So I said, what type of trouble are you causing? And then she didn't respond to that, which also surprised me, because I expected a response there, but she didn't, right? So then I just texted her online again, and I said, where are we? Because she wasn't responding to the phone, so I took it back a step. And so I said, hey, I'll be back in Boston in a few days, shall I give you a ring? And she goes, nope. Just nope. Which is pretty fucked up, right? Nope. How many people, again, think to yourselves, how many people would give up right now? If you're like, hey, should I call you when I get back in town? She's like, nope. Nope. Right? But, again, I'm just curious. First of all, I'm curious. I'm not really that affected, etc. So I go, LOL, NP, no problem. May I ask why the sudden change? Question mark. Seeing someone? Question mark. Right? I just want to know. I want to know what's up because it's surprising to me. Right? And a lot of times if there's surprising behavior, there's a surprising reason. And a lot of times the surprising reason can be overcome. A lot of times it's not because they don't like you. It's just because some weird thing happened or whatever. So you want to get to the bottom of it. You never know. A lot of times if someone's behaving out of character, it's because they are out of character, because something weird's going on. And so get to the bottom of it. In this case, my spidey sense was correct. And yeah, this is what was happening. I said, why the sudden change? Are you seeing someone? And so now she starts writing me novels. She says, because you looked familiar. It took me a while to place you, but I did. It's not even that you make YouTube videos that teeter on scummy or that your tweets are degrading to women and or hilariously arrogant. Me quotes, really? It is that you try to conceal all of this when I asked you what you did. You and RSD have a huge online presence. The least you could do is own it when you talk with women instead of trying to hide it. Meanwhile, I told her I'm a life skills coach, and I focus on, my audience is primarily male. I think that's a pretty good, like, for a girl you've never met over the phone, telling her what you are as an RSD instructor. I think it's pretty damn honest. But anyway, whatever. I said I work on life and social skills primarily with men. We do a lot in the dating field, but also like communication in general, etc. So that's what I told her. But apparently that's misleading. And so she continues, I don't care if you think I'm insane. Online dating is sketchy at best, and knowledge is power. And Google is here to make the pursuit of knowledge easier. I've also resigned myself to the fact it's like this story might end up on some slanderous tweet or blog post, but that's okay too. Well, not really, but man, worse things have happened, right? I'm glad I did do my due diligence, so now we won't be wasting each other's time. Anyway, best of luck for whatever you're looking for. Alright, so pretty friggin' long-ass dissing novel. Again, very good opportunity to just say, fuck it, it's over, right? But what do? I flip the frame around. Right, instead of it being like, I'm the weird, creepy one because I'm a pickup coach and didn't tell her, A, I did tell her, and B, she's the weird, creepy one because she Googled me. So I completely flipped the frame in my next message. So I say, and by the way, this is a little long, but I can get away with long because it's online rather than text, and because her last one was like a novel. So this is still shorter than what she's writing, and because she's clearly invested because she's writing a lot, even though it's negative. And also I know, because I know how girls are when they find out about my job, that she's very unlikely to be flaky now. She'll respond back. It'll just be hard to get her on a date, and it'll be hard to escalate physically. Just from experience. So I'm not as worried about the no response as I normally would be because of the context and the history. So it's a little long. But I say, haha, I'm flattered, and sadly your email is far from the most post-worthy I've received. And speaking of honesty disclosure, I'm guessing you Googled me before standing me up? I failed to see how traveling public speaker on the topic of self-help for men in the social skills area is in any way a deceptive description. I think I even told you the name of my company on the phone. If my job's a deal breaker for you, that's fine, but don't try to act like I deceived you. If I wanted to lie to girls, I'd actually lie to them. And trust me, it would make my life a lot easier. If you're still curious / adventurous, I'm still cocky enough to believe my personality and excellence can overcome any preconception. Let me know. Alright, so probably off, but Hail Mary, and I think it's a pretty good Hail Mary because I reframe it, I put it up as a challenge to her, and I basically call her out as her being the one who's full of shit, right? So then she goes, Jesus, another novel. I Googled you before we talked, but after I gave you my number, I'll say this, your job doesn't necessarily turn me off, it makes me damn curious. And not in a date you sleep with you kind of way, mind you. I just find it fascinating, only marginally repulsive. What turned me off was the Twitter thing. I could try and give you the benefit of the doubt and chalk your Twitter up to persona of RSD Todd, but Oh, and you're ready to interview. You've slept with that many girls, ooh, yucky, although potentially impressive if they're all mildly attractive. And you're totally right. You didn't deceive me, life coach, blah, blah, blah. It's technically what you do, but there's more to it than that. You most certainly did not mention the name of your company, though. It's funny, I might be wrong, but I feel like I read somewhere in a past life you were studying mechanical engineering because that would have piqued my interest more than some dude with a way with words, but oh well. Not that you care, but it's an interesting experience one night with a friend of mine. Goes on, talks about, like, some lame guys hitting her up and stuff like that. Okay, I'm done rambling. I think you're one of the more interesting folks I've come across here. I have a negative interest in dating you, and I'm guessing you aren't on here to meet girls who don't want to date sleep with you, which is totally cool, which is almost too bad, right? So then I say, I'm okay with friends as long as you realize you'll have to live up to a higher standard in other areas to get my attention. She goes, oh yeah, well I'm arrogant, cocky enough myself to believe that won't be a problem. So then we went out, flirted, had her chasing me the whole time, like terrified I would run away, and then she's been texting me while I've been out of town ever since. And so we're working it from here. It's going to be difficult. I'll mess with it because it's interesting to like try and checkmate God. But the point here is the reframing and how you can how you can use those frames to your advantage. How whatever shit test she throws at you, you can always turn it into her being the weird one, right, via text. And again, these are really long. These are really long because they're online, but the same principles apply in text game. Okay, so even if it's a longer sort of interaction, what I might try and do really fast, I'm gonna jump off here for just 1 second, only because I want to try and plug in my old phone, and that way I can get you some text messages off my old phone. Because I don't have any really good text on my new phone right now. But I'm gonna pull some off my old phone for you guys. So give me just a quick pause while I step off and grab my phone. Okay, 1 second. All right, charger. Let's see if we can do anything with this. All right, I plugged my phone into the charger. I'm waiting for it to load up, so it'll take a couple minutes. But at least it's there as a possible resource as well. So I'll give you guys some more examples that are actual text examples in a minute. But any other quick questions before that boots up? Okay, we'll go to the recorded chat questions then. Let's see. Over text. Okay, so these questions that I'm getting here right now, I'm gonna boot this up. Hopefully this is actually charging up. I don't know if it is. Actually, we'll leave it. Okay. So I have some other questions which are like logistical, general game questions. How to deal with sharing a hotel room with your wings. How to deal with if you have roommates that don't want you to pull, etc., etc. The first thing I would say there, obviously, get better roommates. Right? It's a shitty situation. I mean, I'm pretty much going to be moving out of a free place in Cambridge because I need to be able to pull. I need to have like good logistics. So it's just part of being a man is take care of your life and take care of your lifestyle if you want to have girls in it. So number one, look to your logistics and take care of your wingman. With winging in general, I've heard a lot recently about wingman tactics. With winging in general, it doesn't necessarily matter what rules you establish with your wingmen. Like I know some wingmen that love to compete with each other. I know some wingmen that would never step on each other's toes. I know some wingmen that are like whoever opens the set controls it. I know other ones that are like let the girls decide. It doesn't really matter what rules you go by so much, but what does matter is that you have consistent rules and that you live up to them. Because one of the biggest things that you can have in a wingman relationship is you have to have trust. Sorry for looking away, guys. I'm pulling up messages. We're going to try and pull up messages. This is interesting, though, because the reason I got rid of this one is it's kind of broken, so we'll see how well it works right now. But yeah, you need to make sure that you have those clear expectations, because stealing a girl off your wing is not necessarily a bad thing or not necessarily a good thing. But if your rule is not to, then it's a bad thing for sure. If your rule is that it's okay, then it's totally a good thing. And if you don't have a rule, that's when you get into situations where somebody does something that's massively wrong, and they don't even know it's wrong, and then you end up like killing the relationship, right? And realize that a good wingman is worth more than a girl. All right, a good wingman is worth more than any particular girl you're going to pick up with that wingman. So treasure that relationship, and do the most with it, and actually be giving in that relationship. Don't be the guy that will never like step on a grenade for for his wingman. It's such a huge thing you can do, right? Getting another guy laid it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I do it all the time as an instructor. But yeah, it's a great bond between you guys. So treasure it and really work towards it. But yeah, in terms of dealing with logistics with a wing, like if you're sharing a hotel room or sharing a place or whatever is the question that was asked. Come up with some kind of code and come up with some kind of system where, say if someone pulls to the room, what are your guidelines, right? Again, it doesn't matter what they are; it just matters have them. Are your guidelines that say if it's me and you and I pull, you stay out for however long it takes and you let me burn it to the ground? That's one rule you can go with, and if you were my wingman, I'd be fine with that rule. Completely okay with that rule. Some people wouldn't. A lot of people would say, "Fuck you! I want my room. I want to sleep." When you get the girl in there, you have like an hour, right? You have like an hour or 2 hours maybe max to do with last minute resistance and actually have sex. And after that, fuck it. You've scored. You put it on the board. Go back to her place or just chill with her or whatever, and then do it again later when I don't need to sleep. Which is also totally valid if you agree with it in advance. So those are two very different ways of looking at it, and they're totally fine. The other way you could look at it is just a completely free-for-all, like leave the door open and let the girl bring his girl in while you have your girl in and just go for whatever crazy orgy shit's going to happen. That's another way to go. Again, it doesn't really matter what the policy is, but it does matter there is a policy. Also be very cognizant. Shit, hang on, I unplugged my phone again. Be very cognizant of communicating and making sure that you look out for each other's feelings as you go. If you're in doubt on anything, always just ask permission. That's the biggest thing. So handle your logistics, get it taken care of ahead of time, but also be very kind to your wings, be very good to your wings, because your wings will take care of you. A good wing will take care of you so well. They're seriously better than gold. So value that relationship. The other thing I would suggest is another random wingman tactic thing that's just fun, is try and compete with your wings sometimes if you never have. Like let them know ahead of time, make it a specific night when you're going out to do it. But it's crazy how much value you can get out of competing with someone for a girl, because the problem is, or the thing is, if you're talking to a girl, she's making the decision whether to go home with some guy or not. But if two guys are talking to her and fighting with her, or fighting over her, in a weird sense, the decision, because she's comparing the two guys, the decision almost changes from am I going to go home with someone to which one am I going to go home with. And so in a really weird way, even though someone's going to lose, someone's going to win. And so it makes your odds actually not so bad. And it's actually a really fun thing to do, too. The other thing you can do, too, is start out fighting and then end up doing, like, pushing for, like, something like devil's threesome or something. So that's always fun, too. So there's some interesting thoughts on wingman tactics. Another question and answer here. Another question in text. Anybody else live have questions before I go with another text question?
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay.
Like for example, I was telling you here in Ecuador, there's no community, no pickup community.
Okay.
Like, of course, there are guys that I go out with that like girls and everything, but how would I convince some people like to get on board? Something like this.
Don't try and convince a bunch at first. Just try and convince one, and then try and convince one more, and then convince one more. You don't have to bite off a whole lot, right? Just get it one solid wingman, and then get another one, and get another one. And once you have a crew of like four or five maybe, that's actually solid and going out and consistent, then first of all, it should grow organically. People will see you guys having fun and want to be a part of it. But then also, if you have a crew that's consistently going out and willing to be consistent and trying to organize, then what you should do is you should get in touch with me, because I'm the head of Inner Circle, and let me know you guys are down there, and we'll set up a Facebook group for you guys, and then you guys can post what's going on, and other people can find you that way through RSD. But in order to do that, we're not going to just set up a Facebook group for like one guy or whatever. We need like a few guys that are consistently going out. So what I would say is get it started on your own, right? Get it started to the extent that you can on your own. Get one wingman, get another wing, get another wingman, and then once you have 4 or 5 guys, then let's talk, and let's get you set up with a Facebook group. Let's get you, doing some events and get people in, and then we can call, whatever people we have on our list down there for you. We can email them, get them out to the events, and then hopefully grow it organically from there. That's what we're really trying to do in all the faraway cities. Like obviously the cities like New York, London, those are much easier, and so we don't have to go through that process. But for the smaller cities, a lot of times that's what we're gonna have to do. So I guess we'll say I'll help the people that help themselves. Does that make sense? If you get it started, I will be your best ally and your friend and make it go to the next level. But for now, just work on getting one wingman, and then another wingman, and another wingman. And then, once you have a group of 4. And you could look on the forum, like an RST Nation forum for wingmen, or you could like private message people if you like do a search for Ecuador and see who's in that in like old posts or something, and try and contact them. Those are different ways you could go about it. The other thing you can do is just find guys who just are interested in learning game, or who you just find out that are just cool guys and make them your wings, and then just either introduce them to RST or even don't. Just get them going out with you on a regular basis, and then just bring people in from there. So that would be my best suggestion to you in terms of that to get it started and get it going.
Okay, because like I feel like my circle of friends don't want to push themselves, so I kind of like don't know where to look.
That's tough. It's a tough situation. The cold-hearted answer that I could give you is get better friends. And that doesn't mean like diss off your other friends or anything like that, but do try and find other friends who are willing to push themselves and who are looking to try and expand and grow. Because in the long run, if you're expanding and growing and your friends aren't, sooner or later they're probably not going to end up being the best friends for you anyway. Because you'll just get to a point where your priorities will just be very different than theirs. So I'd recommend trying to add friends that are actually going to be a positive influence in your life. And then also, if you can make your friends more positive, you can try, but it's hard to change people. It's hard to change someone who doesn't want to change. So yeah, it's a tough situation. It's a tough situation. Also, by the way, go out alone. Go out alone. I learned alone for 3 years, roughly 3 years, before I ever met any RSD guys, ever had any wingmen, any of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, in fact, yeah, actually I did. I had a wingman at some point, yeah. I was going to say I never had a wingman before I joined RSD, but no, I had 2 wingmen at various times before I was in RSD. But yeah, just push yourself the best I can. It's not the best situation. It's not optimal. The other option is move. I think Jeffy had a video where he was talking about like if you live in mid-America and you have trouble doing pickup because it's all the same people and all that kind of stuff. Well, fuck it, move to a bigger city. Move to a more a metropolitan center. So if it's a really big commitment and a really big hassle for you, you can always move. But that shouldn't be necessary. You should be able to find people in your area if you're patient and proactive and get something going. So that would be my best recommendation to you. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah.
Yeah. I got one question about multiple night game. I'm very used to doing a day game. I do day game almost every day.
Okay.
Usually what I do is I go very direct on girls. That's the frame in which I work.
Okay.
I always get the numbers. But suddenly, because I haven't done night game in such a while, when I started doing night game again, I started going like super direct on my intent for every girl I was seeing, and this kind of like turned me in a situation in which I was just getting cockblocked by every single friend, or I just couldn't get any girl to like me. I mean, I got girls to like me, but I would never.
They would never be left long enough for it to go, basically.
Yeah. So my question would be, so what do you do actually when you go to a nightclub? Do you actually go with a social intent, and then you start working from there, or?
I would assess each individual set. I definitely would be very cognizant of the peer group, because the peer group is going to be an issue for you a lot of the time. And depending on where you go, like if you go to like a college-y bar where everybody knows where it's very cliquey and people have their group of friends, it's almost more important to get to know the friends than it is to get to know the girl you're into sometimes. So be cognizant of that. Also, but then on the flip side, if you go to a bar full of like 30-plus-year-old cougars, they're just like out to like get laid by some hot young guy. A lot of times you can get away with just talking to the one because her friends like want her to get laid. Right, so it just depends in that case. So assess the situation and see whether you can go super direct or not. But even if you go direct, like even if you go straight in on the one you want direct, always kind of keep your peripheral vision and keep a lookout for where the friends are, so that before the friends can come be like, oh my god, we have to go dance, you'd be like, you should see them coming and you should grab them and be like, oh, are these your friends? Introduce me so they don't drag me away. Right, and so you be proactive, so you're the one initiating contact, so you're in a position of control and power when it happens, as opposed to a position of like, what the fuck just happened, and just like getting swept away by it. So that would be a big thing I would encourage if you go super direct. And then the other thing you can do is go social first and then switch over later. And I would do that with more sets that have guys in them, or sets where it's difficult to get to the girl. Like, for example, if they're all sitting in a booth and the one you want is the one far in the back, then in that case, sometimes you have to go somewhat indirect because you can't really, it's hard to go direct on a girl you can't even get to. So in that case, you might have to just befriend the whole group. But know that there are two different options, and know that even if you go direct on the girl, that doesn't preclude you from like getting to the group at some point after you've talked to her for a minute. So even if you pull her out, you like hand of God her, or you claw her or whatever, then you know, once she likes you, once you have enough social capital, once you have enough like rapport with her, that you can be like, oh hey, who are you here with? Are these your friends? Introduce me, and then get to know the peer group that way. At least get tolerated by them, so they don't drag you away. So the big thing is, whatever you do, be proactive. Whatever you do, don't just wait for the objection and try and solve it then. Try and solve the objection before it comes up, whether that means go on the peer group to begin with, or whether that means switching up after. Okay?
Yeah, and one more question.
Uh-huh.
So my group of friends and I we were thinking, whenever we do day game or we do game, there's always a point when you start and you start getting like super freedom of outcome, right?
Uh-huh.
And but for some reason, when we get too freedom of outcome, we just start like fucking it up, you know, like
Okay.
miscalibrate a lot, and it looks like our intent just goes like really low sometimes. It's like we just so to what level is having a freedom of outcome good or intent? So is it good to have a lot of freedom of outcome, or is it good to have a lot of intent? Is there like a maximum? I don't know, like kind of confusing. Oh, how?
Right, I understand what you're saying. So freedom of outcome is naturally sort of like you don't care, right? I mean, literally that's what it is. Whereas intent is you do care very much, and you're pushing very hard, right? So if that's the case, yeah, on the one level, the girl wants to feel like you're not a creepy guy who's just going to rape her. But then on the other hand, she needs to feel like you're actually going to do something with it. Like a girl doesn't want to go on a date with a guy that's just going to like pussyfoot around and like never actually make a move. Right? So she should also feel like she is in like some danger of like having sex at some point. So yeah, definitely. And I would say the point where it should cut off is the point where you notice that. I mean, you'll notice from calibration, because you even said yourself, right? You go out, at first you're not that outcome free, and then you get outcome free, it probably makes yourself better, and then you get to a point where it's too much, right?
Yeah.
And the point where it's too much probably is the point where even if the girl's like having fun with you, you just refuse to take it somewhere, right? So if you get to the point where you feel like it might be too much, just because you said basically you get to a point where you feel like it's already too much. If you're getting there, just start trying to close a lot. Just start even if it's not physical, or even if it's not your soul's not in the close. Just start trying to close, even if it's just funny closing, right? So like for example, every time they say something remotely nice to you, be like, oh yeah, so you're gonna get out of here then? Or be like, or if they say something nice, you'd be like, aw, you like me, right? That sort of thing. Just be playful with it, but be like trying to close. Or be like, really? Right? Exactly. So even if you don't feel the intent necessarily, even if you're not like all sexually turned on, at least act like you would if you had the intent, and act as if, and let yourself get there. The other thing that you can do is just overtly slow down, which will inherently have intent as well. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna give another example of some text game stuff. This is actual text game. This is from a girl I met online, and then she texted me. It's actually the same one that I had that long string where she was 21 and I was 30, and she like blew me off a couple times, and then I eventually turned it around, all right? So here's the text sequence for us to get to the first date. So she goes, hi Todd, this is your future chat room wife, smiley face. So I go, hey you, I'm flattered, but this is all moving kind of fast for me. I mean, we haven't even followed each other on Twitter yet, and then a wink. She goes, whoa there, you're totally right, we're not even Facebook friends. And then she goes like some emoticon I don't even recognize. So I go, yeah, maybe we should take a break. So this is me now, right, about to text. So now I pushed her away, and then she pushed me away back, and actually basically stole my joke, right? I was going to say Facebook, but because I mentioned Facebook in the online, I didn't mention it, and then she stole Facebook, which pissed me off. But so I go, yeah, maybe we should take a break. I want you to know it's not you, though, it's me. I still think you're an amazing person, and this has nothing to do with your love handles. Maybe we can just be friends, right? Or maybe we can still be friends, sorry. So it's a pretty hard push away, right? And the reason I do this is because she just kind of dissed me back, so I'm passing the shit test, and also because it's what worked online, right? Realize that every girl has her own different sort of method of communicating. So if you find out that a particular girl responds to you teasing her, then tease the shit out of her. If you find that she responds to you being a total dickhead, be a total dickhead. If you find that she responds to you like talking like sexually to her, like talking like a romance novel, talk like a romance novel, right? So what you're basically doing, I guess, when you meet a girl is you're throwing a bunch of different things against the wall. You're trying a bunch of different things. But then once something works, recognize what worked. Recognize what worked. And this is actually why learning game makes you better than a natural. Is because once you recognize how what works, you recognize the girl's blueprint, now you know how to deal with her. So I know that pushing this girl away works, because I learned that from the online. Every time I tried to pull her in and close, I got fucked, or like, fucked over. But then every time I pushed her away, it actually got better. So I know this girl likes being pushed away. I know it works for her, so I push her away, right? So I say, we should break up. Maybe it's not your love handles. Maybe we can still be friends. She goes, what? My love handles are fantastic, so it most definitely is you. Okay, so now this was tough, because now it's sort of like a conversation ender. Like I don't really want to keep playing that frame again, because now it's like I'm too invested in that particular little flirt. So I didn't want to keep playing that, and I didn't really know how to continue it. So what did I do? The smart thing, which is I looked at it, thought it was funny, thought it was cute, and then I threw it in my pocket and left it. Just threw it in my pocket and left it. Right? Let her experience silence. Let her want to chase me a little bit. So then I wake up the next morning. This was late at night, like some evening. And then the next morning, I said, this morning I hired 4 interns in my pajamas. How they got in my pajamas, I don't know. Letting them like a smiley face, right? Which is a really bad joke from like the Marx Brothers, 1930s or something like that. But anyway, it's just value offering, right? So I went back to value offering, because I didn't really have a place to go with it. I didn't have a continuation. I didn't want to call back the previous conversation, be too invested. So I just go back and offer value and reinitiate. So I go, this morning I hired 4 interns in my pajamas. How they got in my pajamas, I don't know. And she goes, how dare they, so inappropriate. Right, so now she's flirting again, now she's getting sexual again, right? So then I go, but again, she likes being pushed away. So I go, don't get any ideas. You won't be getting in my pajamas until at least the 23rd date. I'm not that kind of boy. Wink. And she goes, I would never. I can't believe you would accuse your chat room wife of something like that. Right? Okay, so again, she's playing the frame, she's jumping on my frames, but I don't really have anywhere else to go with this. I can't think of somewhere else to go with this. I think I also was probably traveling around a bit at the time. I don't remember, but I think I was traveling around a bit, so I couldn't really close for a date right now either. So I didn't really have somewhere to take it. And she's receptive in that she's flirting, but she hasn't overtly said, I like you or let's get together. So she hasn't really given a full indicator of interest yet, even though she's flirting. So what did I do? I just stopped again, waited in this case 2 days, and then I just sent her craziest weekend ever, wish you were here. Right, so I was obviously traveling. And she goes, yeah, what did you do? So then I go, trip to New York City, just getting back, what sort of trouble are you causing? Now I'm just getting back. That's probably why I messaged her a couple of days ago, right? Because I'm just getting back, I'm starting to initiate something. I didn't just initiate, hey, I'm back, let's hang out. Right, I just initiated as though I'm still on the road, whatever, and then let it flow into I'm back. So I go, trip to New York City, just getting back, what sort of trouble are you causing? And then she goes, I'm not going to lie, you're a terrible texting buddy. Referring to the fact that I never respond because I take forever to text. I don't know how long the last one was. Yeah, it was, again, 2 days. 2 days to wait on the last text, so I just went silent for 2 days. She goes, I'm not going to lie, you're a terrible texting buddy. Right now I'm half naked making my sister watch The Walking Dead. We're pretty badass. Right? So, it's pretty sexy. Right? Now she's trying to bring up the sexy thing, etc. She's trying to turn me on. It's kind of like it's a shit test in a sense to see how I'll respond to it, but it's also extremely flirty and flattering, right? So I go, trying to turn me on with the half naked A. Fortunately I'm a moral rock. And then she goes, maybe just a little, it's a fantastic view from here. As in, I'm very sexy. Okay, so now I go, very sexy, though technically, for all I know, you're a 50-year-old man with 3 teeth and 4 chins, wink. And she goes, my God, you figured me out. I've got to say, though, I'm pretty sexy for a 50-year-old man. My chins hang quite gracefully. So then here is where I think I really turn it around, right? Because right now it's flirty, 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 but she hasn't really given strong indicators of interest, per se. Right, so I give the one last push away, and this is a really, really hard push away. I go, yeah, I gotta go. Something just came up. I think it was my lunch, and then I give that sort of like sidewaysy face, that like angled down face, like the what the fuck. And so then she goes, fuck you, I'm really a girl. Right? So now she's like trying to prove herself to me, right? Now that's the first time she's gone from like giving me shit and being flirty to actually qualifying herself. Fuck you, I'm really a girl. Like I've gotten her to the point where she has to like even say something as obvious as that she's a girl to prove herself to me. God, I would hope so, right? So she goes, fuck you, I'm really a girl. And I like this one. It's just very clever. I say, if the second part is true, I'll entertain the first, i.e. if you're really a girl, I'll entertain fucking you. So if the second part is true, I'll entertain the first, and then a wink to soften it a little bit. Perhaps you should grab a drink and verify. And then she goes, haha, maybe we should, and I do this. And then we set up logistics, and then we go. So that's an example of again, that was a bit of a longer interaction, via text. And a lot of them were shorter, but in this case it was longer because the online was long, and I got to work, and B, she responded to me pushing me. She responded to me pushing her away. And so what I kept doing was pushing her away until she snapped back. And then eventually she snapped back and I closed. But because the only thing that I found was that it actually worked, just pushing away, I didn't really have a lot of options in terms of how to so it took a little bit of time, but it wasn't so difficult to respond and then we ended up having sex on Thursday, which was fun. So obviously she should have been able to say bad things can happen.